do that with your families. Spark, let's jump into some of these other stories from the NFL real quick. One that I had to highlight, Antonio Brown. We've been following this story for months. But something the prosecutor came out yesterday and linked down. He could potentially see a 30-year prison sentence if found guilty for this entire attempted murder situation that he is in. What are your thoughts on this? I know we talked about the fact that he's probably going to be seeing some serious prison time for this. But realistically, what are your thoughts on the potential of him having, 30 years in prison is pretty dang rough.
Yeah, it's steep, man. And we've been talking about this since it broke. And I mean, when in the beginning it was 15 years, but you got also have to count, this is attempted murder. Not only, it's just not a truck, at a boxing event. The guy took a gun from a security guard and tried to kill somebody. I get it. He was trying to steal his thing, but I mean, there's got to be a line. And on top of that, he took out to Dubai.
Right.
It's not like he was just running from the police. He's the country.
No, he full left America. I mean, that's going to be going against him as well, obviously. I mean, you evading the police is not going to help your case whatsoever, especially like you said, was it last week or the week before? The man was on social media, on lives, essentially laughing at the American government, saying, "Hi, you can't come get me. I'm in Dubai. I'm untouchable."
Yeah, one video I saw, he was riding a bike like Debo on Friday, riding around in circles with a wife beater on. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? But when you bring up the name Antonio Brown, we all go immediately like there's something wrong with this guy.
Oh, 100%.
And maybe that's the kind of help that he can get in the prison system. I have no idea, but the guy needs some mental health evaluation.
He does. And again, whether this is CTE or not, we can blame Vontaze Burfict for that hit. I have no idea. We're going to find out later in his life or career. I hope it doesn't reach a point in which it goes overboard, as we've seen a couple other instances happen. I think he's probably the closest one to being overboard without, fully getting in trouble yet. Obviously, he's staring that dead in the face right now. But it just, I still have to say it, man. When this guy was at his height with the Steelers, I don't remember him acting this way. I don't remember him essentially being a problem. I remember him being a hardworking wide receiver, somebody who wanted to get to the top. But then after that hit, I feel like all of this spiraled. I know a lot of people sit there and say, no, he was always like this. And obviously, I don't know the man personally, so I can't say yes or no if that's true. But I can honestly say that CTE might have a case of this. I mean, we talked about the BJ Penn situation and him being arrested 6 times in a year. I mean, you can't sit there and tell me that CTE or some sort of mental, hit didn't have a hand in that, right?
Yeah, so I totally. I mean, it's a violent sport. I've heard from past, teammates of his, whether it was Joey Porter or not, they've mentioned that the guy's wild, but I mean, to the point, a lot of this social media stuff early in his career, we didn't hear a lot from players like we do now.
Right.
And maybe it's a little bit of both, but definitely, we've seen the hits not only from Burfict, but there's a couple of them. There's a YouTube reel of just how many hits this kid has taken to the head. And maybe that's something that he'll get some type of evaluation, but hopefully we could get to it before it's too late.
I couldn't agree more. And we need to figure that out. I don't know if obviously you can fix it or fix, quote unquote, but more, I don't know if you can aid
There's
in
not
that
vitamins
area.
for that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can't fix his brain, but maybe we could figure out a way where, you can be wild, but not to the point where you're getting arrested for 30 years.
Right.
The other story that I have to highlight, besides Shedeur Sanders, which we'll get to in a second as well, but Sparky has been calling for this for weeks, and I'm not joking about that. I mean weeks. Justin Fields finally being benched by the Jets, as we will see Tyrod Taylor start this week as they take on the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know if this is a little too late kind of a situation here. Was Aaron Glenn just kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop? I don't know why you didn't do this after the game in which he only threw for 60 yards, but the jury's still out on that one. What are your thoughts on this? I know you've obviously been calling for this for weeks, and you firmly believe that this team is in better standing with Tyrod Taylor at the helm.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's too much of a better standing, but you have to have a quarterback that can at least throw downfield.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of issues with that Jets roster. But I mean, I don't know what they were expecting out of Fields. They didn't really have a package. Maybe they'll build one with Tyrod, but Tyrod. Everyone knows Tyrod. He's a career backup, gunslinger, and that's the type of thing when you're at the bottom looking up at all these holes on your roster. That's the type of guy you need at quarterback, is a gunslinger that doesn't care.
Right. And honestly, he is a game manager as well. I think the term gunslinger is a negative term in a lot of the ways. I think everybody
Oh
hears
no.
that and they think somebody that just drops back and throws it as far as they can and gets intercepted. I think a gunslinger is honestly what you need in today's NFL, especially with how pass heavy everybody is. And if you can find one that's at least competent enough to hold on to the ball and not turn it over, you've got a guy. I mean, and Tyrod, in my opinion, I have to agree with you, is a better option than Justin Fields. Is he the first, the option going into next year and the year after? Absolutely not. Most likely we'll see them draft a quarterback in this next draft, whomever it will be. But at this point right now, if you're the Jets and you want to at least salvage a little bit of this season, I think this is the right move.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks, I know there was a busy weekend. We got to watch. I mean, I got up super early for
Yes, you did. I was just
the
about to ask
Dolphin
about
game,
that.
and we were able to find a casino down here, and we had front and center watching the Dolphin game. That game, just like Dolphin fashion, I told everybody, "Oh, we're gonna kill him. We're gonna kill him." I said, "No, dude, it's gonna be a Dolphin game. It's gonna be at the end." And if we pull it off, it'll be in the last seconds. And what do you know?
Yep.
That's in Dolphin fashion. But I was going to bring up what happened with Penix. I didn't get to catch a lot of those games, but I did get the alert that says Penix is out for the season. So is that time for Kirk Cousins?
Partially torn ACL, from what I understand. He tried to go get a second opinion yesterday, did not go his way. It was during, I believe, one of the final drives of the fourth quarter. He dropped back and got beat up by a defensive lineman, rolled on it a little weird. And I think this is just a compound injury from what we saw a couple weeks ago, because he did get banged up in the knee and tried to play on it. So I think this is obviously what came out of that. But as an Atlanta Falcons fan, I obviously don't want to go into this any further than I need to, but the game was ugly. I mean, Atlanta was up 21-10 at one point, and Carolina comes back and beats you. Bryce Young apparently can only play well against the Atlanta Falcons, almost throwing for 500 yards. And it was one of those games I felt like once Michael went down, you knew the air got sucked out of the building and the team just wasn't going to get the job done, especially going into overtime. And you've heard me say this, Sparky. I never, ever want to see ever want to see Kirk Cousins in a Falcons uniform again. Never. And this is one of those instances.
My question I don't know if it was a fact, but what I caught at SportsCenter on Sunday night is this is a knee issue that Penix has had his whole career, not even,
in college as well. Yeah. I mean, he's been an injury prone quarterback, I guess you could say, in his college years, especially at Indiana. But at this point right now in his career, I don't know if you can necessarily say this is a compound from that far back. I do think this is something from the beginning of the season or earlier on in the season that just got worse. But I mean, you can't you can't ignore his injury prone nature, at least what we've seen in the past, because he has had issues with the knee. So I hope him, or I wish him a very speedy recovery, because God knows Atlanta needs him right now. But I said this to Greg Kerr yesterday. I genuinely believe Raheem Morris, much like we talked about with Pete Carroll, he might be out. This team is far too talented and stacked, especially on the offensive side. And now the defense is getting it done. I mean, they have had the most sacks in NFL history in a 3-game span, Sparky, the last 3 games. And guess how many of those games they've won?
One.
No, none. 0. Big fat O. None of them. So,
and I've also heard around the rumor mill that they might have a coach in mind.
Yeah, I've heard this as well. And honestly, I'd be very, very content if the Green Bay Packers did end up moving on from Matt LaFleur, and Matt said, hey, I kind of want to come back to Atlanta and figure this out. Shoot, I'd be okay with Mike McDaniel coming back and figuring out something with this offense. I won't lie to you. I'll take
that
anybody.
Brings up another subject, because if Miami continues to win, I mean, they have some good matchups coming up. And I mean, is the door not closed in Miami for McDaniel? Because what it looks like is the team has rallied behind the coach.
I wish I could have grabbed the audio I sent you of John Gruden because I'm glad you brought this up. The Dolphins are not out of the playoff picture at all for you Miami fans out there. There is a possibility they sneak in, especially if they can galvanize themselves after the firing of the GM. And I mean, Sparky, you've talked about it for weeks and the need for them to actually move on from Greer and like move into something a little bit more nuanced, new in the area of football in Miami. But do you think the McDaniels potentially could save his job? I know you've been very adamant about, he needs to figure out a way to make the offense better in order to save his job. Do you think he's doing that right now?
I mean, it looks like what the coach is doing. He's rallying the troops, and they're playing behind him. And I will say the defense has stepped up by three the last 3 weeks, and it's going to be a tough test. But once again, I've been saying it. John Gruden continues to talk about the Dolphins.
Yes, he does.
I did watch that podcast, and I was like, I mean, he seems more fired up than our coach. But I will
wild.
say, I mean, I don't have any hatred from Mike McDaniel. I mean, he's kind of dealing with the cards he's dealt, and with a coach that inherited a guy like Tua, he can only go as far as Tua will take him.
This is very true. In the next 5 games for Miami, just so you guys know, you got the Saints at home. Then they'll be headed to New Jersey to take on the Jets. Then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Bengals at home, and the Buccaneers at home. Very much winnable games right now, even the Buccaneers, because the Buccaneers are obviously dealing with a ton of injuries and have still tried to figure out what they can be without star wide receivers Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I think the rookies that they've had have obviously stepped up and been the next guys up to do this. But the next 5 games, totally winnable for Miami. This could be the turnaround they need and the turnaround Mike McDaniels needs to get everybody off his back. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch as the season continues. Let's take a break real quick, my friend. On the other side, we will get into a couple more of these stories before we get out of here. Like I said, your favorite quarterback, Josh Allen, had a historic game once again. I know, grown. I get it.
On my bench.
Did he really? God, come on, buddy. You know you can't. You got to start Josh. Out of all
I have
of them.
Stafford, man.
Oh, true. Very true. And that was a fantastic game as well. And for those of you who are Rams fans that are sitting there laughing your way to the bank because you beat the Seattle Seahawks, I wouldn't take to heart that win whatsoever. But we'll get into that on the other side of the break. This is the Early Bird Special right here on ESPN Bakersfield. Welcome back. Early Bird Special right here on ESPN Bakersfield, 101.1 FM, 12:30 AM. And Sparky is live from Las Vegas as he got to go cover the Raider game last night and the very disappointing loss that we saw between the Cowboys and the Raiders at home. But it is what it is. I think we all know exactly where the Raiders are right now in the season and how this is going to shape up for them. Raider fans not very happy about it, but I don't think anybody's more frustrated about it than Max Crosby, who continues to do everything for this team and not get anything in return. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But let's talk about another team that is struggling, but has somehow figured out some way to get their quarterback of the future onto the field. That would be the Cleveland Browns, who unfortunately lost this weekend 23-16 in a game that was very, very winnable. But we saw Shedeur Sanders on the field for the first time after Dylan Gabriel getting knocked out due to a concussion. Coach Kevin Stefanski has already come out and said Dylan Gabriel's the starter this week, Sparky, even though he hasn't been cleared from concussion protocol.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Can we sit here and say that Kevin is just out to get Shedeur? I mean, at this point, can we all just accept the fact that this guy does not like Shedeur Sanders? I mean, the story coming out of the camp is Shedeur hasn't even had a single snap with the ones. A single practice snap with the ones. What does that tell you, Spark?
I mean, even with your backup quarterbacks, usually what I've heard is they always get 5 to 10 snaps
at
with
least.
Quarterback ones. And I mean, I know we've talked about it for months. I mean, it wasn't his pick, and maybe he's just forcing his hand that he wants out of Cleveland. But you know what I heard from Vegas, because they had it all over the field.
Of course,
next game is against Shedeur.
Yes, it is.
And Raider fans are like, dude, he's going to rip us apart. And to tell you the truth, I mean, I only got to see the couple plays that he got. I mean, everything, I mean, is got to change in Cleveland. And I don't know if it's going to be Shedeur that shows some type of, a future in Cleveland, or maybe it's just time to part ways with the coach and get a new offensive mind with Shedeur that can help this kid build.
I've been saying that for weeks. I know he's a multiple-time coach of the year. I realize that, and a lot of people say I'm crazy for that take, but I've been saying that for a while now. We got to move on from this dude. I don't say we as if I'm a Cleveland fan. Let's not get crazy, but I say that in a sense of this type of coaching just shows that you're not putting everything into at least making adjustments to be successful. You are so against Shedeur Sanders playing that you won't even give him reps with the first team. Cam Newton said it beautifully yesterday on First Take. When Joe Flacco was your starting quarterback, was Dylan Gabriel getting first team reps? I'd be willing to say, yes, he was. So why are you not doing it with Shedeur Sanders, who is your QB2? And again, Cam Newton said it beautifully. Ron Rivera said it beautifully when he was playing with him, or playing for him, I should say. You're one play away from that quarterback not being available to you.
Yep.
So why not let Shedeur get some reps with the first team? And for everybody coming out, especially at The Athletic, who did an entire dissertation story on this, saying that this is why Shedeur wasn't playing. No, Shedeur looked bad because he has no prep. He has no time. The linemen don't even know his cadence, Spark. Like, how is this kid supposed to be successful if you don't even give him the opportunity to be successful? And I think that's ultimately what's going to lead to Kevin Stefanski getting fired. Granted, we've talked about this multiple times this season. Stefanski's guy is Dylan Gabriel. The GM's guy is Shedeur Sanders. That's not a good combination.
No. And, as a team sport, you should all be on the same page moving forward and trying to get the next win. But, I mean, not only that, but, I mean, they've got a good opportunity. I heard it from Schefter last night. He was saying the same thing. He said, Dylan Gabriel's in concussion protocol, and it would be a very, very small chance that he is going to be cleared before this game.
Right.
So what is this week's practice? And I think it's almost dug himself in, because now he's going to be forced into a back where he's got to start Shedeur, or maybe he doesn't. Who friggin' knows with this team? But my real question is, I mean, say Shedeur plays bad. I mean, is that going to be on Stefanski because he's not giving the kid reps?
I say
or
yes.
Is it the opposite side where, Shedeur comes out and beats up on this Raider defense that was a no-show last night.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, I mean, what happens if Shador comes out and throws 3 touchdowns and beat the Raiders? Then what?
Well,
Are they still going to be turning on Stefanski?
probably.
I mean, obviously.
That's what I would think. I mean, again, when you it's a different game from college to pro. I don't think I'm, shocking anybody's thought process there. The speed is different. Shador's not ready for that. Or I shouldn't say not ready for it, but he wasn't prepared for that, right? And that's on the head coach. You not giving him the reps, you not taking him seriously in practice only shows me that you aren't taking it seriously for him to succeed, which means at any point in time, if this guy hit the field, it was going to look like this. There's no way Shador Sanders is just going to magically know how to play with the first team. You need those reps. You need the chemistry. We talk about it all the time. One of the most important things is the chemistry between a quarterback and a wide receiver. And if Shador isn't there getting those reps with Jerry Jeudy, he's not going to have that. And he's not going to be successful. And that's why you got the 4-16 game that we saw. You know what I mean? Like, that's why we got the interception, because Shador is dealing with this for the first time ever. This essentially was his training camp reps.
Yep.
Like, it really was.
The kid is competitive. I think we're going to see a whole different type of player, whether he gets 3 or 4 days of reps.
Right.
But I still think the upside is with Shador. I mean, look at the kid is athletic. He's competitive, and he's not going to go out there and stink it up unless I really just think the team is in a better hands when Shador is starting over, what the better option is.
Well, I think you could do more with him. I think that athleticism you just spoke of is why you can do more with him. You can have him run. You can have him, roll out in a waggle before he throws the ball. You can do a lot of this different kind of stuff that you can't do with Dylan. I've highlighted it many times that Dylan Gabriel, his small size, his arm strength, it's not necessarily at a par in which you would want it, but it's manageable enough where Kevin Stefanski can make something out of it. But I think Shador has just a bigger upside. I don't understand why Stefanski doesn't like him. Maybe it is just an attitude thing. Maybe he doesn't like the way he carries himself, but not getting him in practice, not getting him in the first team reps, that's not going to help. That's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help your team. It sure as hell.
Professional head coach.
Yeah, it sure as hell isn't going to help you.
Head coach of a professional team. You have the roster, and you play with the best available. And I think you just knocked it out right there, because Shador is competitive, and we've seen the quarterbacks have to run for their lives in Cleveland, and I think Shador could run it at least that offense that they have now a lot better than what we're seeing in Gabriel.
I agree, but let's be honest, a mobile quarterback isn't what's going to save the Cleveland Browns. We saw Johnny Manziel for a long time, and that didn't work for them either. But I genuinely believe this is going to get Stefanski fired. I think this entire idea of him not playing Shador, not wanting to play Shador, not even getting him into practice, that's going to get him fired. I genuinely believe that. And going back to your question, when we first started this, how does this affect him and Shador? I mean, if he does come out against the Raiders and sling it, we see a 200, 300-yard day for a couple touchdowns, I would say that's damning to Stefanski, even if they win that game, which is a wild thing to say, because usually when a head coach wins a game, it's a good thing. We're not even sitting here talking about him getting fired. But in this case, with everything we are learning about this relationship between him and Shador Sanders, I can't honestly say that I think that he is safe in any way, shape, or form, whether Shador succeeds or whether he fails. I think both ways, Stefanski's on his way out, which is a crazy thing to think of. And the other story we should talk about with Shador, since you highlighted to me yesterday, we have another break-in, man.
Oh my God!
Another break-in. Somebody waited for Shador Sanders to be out in Baltimore in this game, broke into his home while he was away. How many times do I gotta say it, Sparky? These guys got to get on-site security. They really do. These guys, these people know where you live, and they're going to break into your house because they know what your schedule is, and they know you're out of town for days upon days on end. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that this is just another one of those, lesson moments for Shador, or do you think that this is one of those outcries to the NFL saying, y'all got to start protecting your homes as much as you protect yourself?
I mean, it's almost in all sports. And I talked to it with a guy I met over the weekend, and he was like, dude, it's like they put their security right there for everybody to look. Okay, well, I know this team is going to be in this state for this 10 days, and some of the international games even on top of that. But It's happening in all sports. It's happening with actors, actresses, and it's the sad thing is it's the first time he got on the field and he has to get that phone call from family like,
Right.
hey, so and so, we lost this, we got it broken into, blah 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 blah.
They took all your chains, bro.
I don't know what was stolen, but I mean, if I know if I'm making $1 million plus, I'm getting security on that house.
That's what I'm thinking. It's not like you don't have the money to pay for a security guard. Like, come on, especially when you're
I mean, their
gone.
house is probably a 16th of what I have, and I got
Yeah.
security on my camera.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, get a Ring doorbell. I mean, not that Ring doorbells can actually help you in this sense, but get
Anything.
something that's going to help you out in this area to deter these guys from breaking into your house, because it's going to continue to happen every single week until you do, and that's not a good sign for them at all. Let's take one final break, my friend, and then we will talk with you for the last 5 minutes before you get out of here to make your sojourn back to Bakersfield.
Oh,
And
I got to hear about this. What did I hear something about Scatabo at Raw last night?
At Raw last night, baby. He looked at hey man, he got into an altercation with Judgment Day. The ankle looked like it held up a little bit, although he looked like he was being held up by Andrew Schultz at the same time. But hey, this is what it is. But it was a fantastic Raw last night, my friend. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, I know you're driving, so I can't say check it out on the way home. But John Cena's last Raw last night, live from Madison Square Garden. We'll get into that with our guy KG as well on the other side of the 8 o'clock hour. KG will be staying with me for the entire hour. So if you are a fan of TKO, if you're a fan of wrestling or combat sports, you're going to want to listen to the second hour because we got so much to talk about in that area too. UFC 322 was over the weekend, and the only fight people are even talking about out of that entire card didn't even happen in the octagon. Yeah.
Preliminary.
It's the craziest thing in the world, my friend. But let's take a break real quick and we'll get the last of this football news out of the way. This is the Early Bird Special right here on ESPN Bakersfield. Welcome back. This is the Early Bird Special right here on ESPN Bakersfield, 101.1 FM, 1230 AM. And real quick, before we let Sparky go and let him take his sojourn back to Bakersfield, he is live from Las Vegas. He got to go cover the Raider game for us yesterday. And to be honest with you, once again, Bakersfield, we were shown on SportsCenter. Just saying. Just saying.
And I will say, just sitting in the locker room, and Quinnen Williams is a monster.
Yes, he is. He's a big boy.
Standing next to George Pickens and C.D. Lamb, which I saw C.D. Lamb has the old Warner Brothers, the WB tattoo on the back of his arm. I didn't notice until I was standing next to him.
Well, he usually has sleeves
on. Hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I actually wanted to highlight, too, because me and our own Rand Dizzle here were talking about it yesterday during the game, but is it crazy to you that when you see the two of them next to each other, you would assume CD is the bigger of the two, but no, George is so much bigger.
And Pickens is so happy to just be out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is getting utilized, and we've talked about it on the show. I mean, he's probably looking for a nice fat paycheck after this season.
Big boy,
and I'm not sure if it's going to be Dallas or not, but I mean, the kid is showing his worth.
Honestly, I'd be surprised if Jerry doesn't put money down on him, to be completely honest. This is the way he's been playing. That warrants whatever contract he's going to ask for, in my opinion. He's clearly Dak Prescott's new favorite wide receiver. So I say throw him the money. Let's talk about some of these other stories before we let you go, my friend. We saw multiple teams have to make some sort of disciplinary action this weekend. Keon Coleman for the Buffalo Bills not being able to play the entire game due to missing meetings again. I want to play this audio for you real quick. This is Deion Dawkins talking about the situation and talking about what he spoke with Keon about afterwards. And this entire situation, he's not the only one, I should say. I'm sorry. He's the only one on the Buffalo Bills, but the Giants also benching Abdul Carter for apparently falling asleep before walkthroughs. We got the Pickens and CeeDee Lamb situation. Obviously, they missed something. They didn't say what. I'm assuming it's curfew, but it is what it is. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Personally, I like this. I like how coaches are stepping up, putting teeth into it, and telling these guys, hey, you may be professional, but that doesn't mean that you get away with not listening to the rules around this place. So
100%. I mean, they're all under contract. They're employed by a football team, and if you can't follow the rules and the guidelines, you have to, whether it's getting slapped on the wrist or, I mean, getting benched. I mean, that takes away, you're supposed to be out there with your boys, your team, and hopefully this is something that they'll clean up quick. I don't know if it's this generation or if it's just something that we got into it. I ran into our old buddy Hop last night. He was also at the Raider game, but I think it's we're seeing it in this younger generation where they don't have that nitty gritty. And we talk about this in other sports like the NBA, where they, some of these players will take a day off or take a couple of days off. And I just think it's a positive thing when a team or a coach, puts down and, make them pay for, whatever respect or disrespect that they're not showing.
All right, and then last question for you, my friend, before we let you go, because we only have a minute left. Josh Allen, 6 touchdowns against the Buccaneers. Jacoby Brissett breaking a completion record in the NFL with 47 completions in a single game, and Sam Darnold throwing for 4 interceptions against the Rams. Which one was more surprising to you?
Surprising? Probably
Jacoby. I have to agree, but then again, it's like I said yesterday with the guys here. When you're down by 21 in the first quarter, I think all they're going to be doing is throwing the football. So
yeah, it's easier when they're playing soft zone.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, thank you for joining me in the first hour. Safe travels back here to Bakersfield.
Well, give me some good luck because I got a speeding ticket on the way here. I can't afford a second one.
Brother, no. And JR wasn't even driving. Okay, you're talking about that tomorrow. Thank you, my friend. We'll see you tomorrow morning. This is the Early Bird Special right here on ESPN Bakersfield. We will be right back, and we'll be talking to our guy 24KG about all things wrestling and TKO. Welcome back. Early Bird Special, Hour 2, right here on ESPN Bakersfield, 101.1 FM, 1230 AM. Again, Sparky was live from Las Vegas in the first hour. He is on his way back to Bakersfield as we speak, so we let him go a little early. But we got to talk to our guy 24KG about all things wrestling, because obviously, as we mentioned multiple times, last night was John Cena's final Raw appearance for the WWE company, and obviously we need to talk about that and much, much more about the world of TKO. My friend, how are you? Uh-oh, we got Kimball. Can you hear me, my friend? No? Let me see. I'm not sure if he can hear me. I could hear you now, definitely. Give me one sec. So yesterday, obviously, for those of you who do not follow wrestling, John Cena has been on this incredible tour, a fantastic tour. And at this point, this is one of his final appearances. I'm trying to get this to work at the same time. one of his final appearances for the WWE company. We are set up for another Intercontinental Championship match next Saturday in San Diego as he takes on Dominic Mysterio. I hope he does not get that belt back, but at this point right now, it's one of those situations where it's really up in the air. We don't know. And honestly, the WWE company as a whole is trying to figure that out. I think we're trying to figure out where this entire storyline is going to end. Is he going to pass on that belt to somebody else? And at this point, we all know that the entire plan, or at least the idea of the plan, is to have John one final time lose to one of these newer wrestlers in NXT. I know they're working on trying to figure out who that's going to be. I personally would prefer seeing him lose to somebody along the lines of Javon Evans, but obviously we saw last night Javon not moving on in this tournament as he took on one of the best in the biz in Gunther. It has been one of those situations where it was a fantastic match. I got to watch this with our own 24 kg last night as we both were talking about what we'll be talking about today. But the Javon Evans match against Gunther was probably the highlight to me. It's really highlighted how good this kid can be in a wrestling ring. And I think a lot of people really get behind that. I think a lot of people really get behind the bouncy nature, as he calls it. And it is one of those situations, truthfully, where I cannot honestly see anything outside of Javon being a successful superstar. And that is what you are seeing going forward. I know we heard this last night. I think Shawn Michaels really sees a great thing in Javon Evans, which is why you're seeing him get this push so eloquently and just so well done. And even taking on a man who physically statured, I guess you could say, is bigger than Javon. It really wasn't that much of a size discrepancy, which I find kind of interesting. But at the same time, one of those situations that everybody needs to realize is we have one of the best feeder systems in the entire industry in NXT. And what they are currently pumping out of NXT is phenomenal. It really is. I think we're going to see a lot more of them throughout the company and throughout these just smaller tournaments that you're going to see going forward. Because I think KG brought up a very good point. I think this is one of those instances in which you will see a lot of tournaments in the WWE upcoming. I think that's really something that people are starting to like. I think AEW really began this, but most of their tournaments don't mean much. They're more for weird titles and stuff like that they just kind of create. And you've heard me talk about this in some of our YouTube videos along with our guy 24kg. I don't think AEW really does a good job at creating champions that matter. I think there's way too many championships in their company that just don't matter. And because of that, you're getting a lot of these situations where I don't know if really you could say these guys are gaining relevance in the world of wrestling because there's about 12 championships these guys go after. The WWE, though, will do this in a different way. We've seen it a little bit when it comes to the Crown Jewel championships. Obviously, you have the ring and all of that kind of stuff. I think this is more of one of those kind of a situation where you get maybe something along the lines of a Super Bowl-esque situation. I mean, they've talked about it many, many times in the past, how they want to change WrestleMania into a 2-night event. And you've heard me say it many times when it comes to Crown Jewel. I feel like Crown Jewel might be that PLE or that company, or I'm sorry, the PLE that the company really leans on to be that second WrestleMania, because obviously you have a lot of people that really enjoy the Riyadh shows, including the people in Riyadh. And they make a lot of money out there. The partnership with TKO, obviously being Saudi Arabian based, it just fits all too well. Let me see if I got our guy 24kg in here now. Can you hear me now, my friend? No. Okay. We are still working on that. I apologize. Give us 1 second. I know he's on the other end right now. Some of you can see him on the stream. For some reason, we are not getting the audio going back and forth. I'll take a quick break here in a little bit just to get us set up. Just so everybody knows what we'll be talking about here in the next couple of minutes, though.
Sir.
The final Raw appearance from John Cena. Fantastic. As we saw, 3-on-3 tag team match, the Judgment Day taking on John, Sheamus, and Rey Mysterio. A fantastic grouping, mind you, but Rey looks like he's the the oldest one out of the bunch, which obviously doesn't bode well for his career going forward. Are we finally going to get his retirement match? I think that's one of those questions that we're going to get to at some point. Let me see if you could actually hear me. Can you hear me now, my guy? I'm not 100% sure. I see him reacting to what I'm saying, but I can't necessarily hear him. That's my issue right now. But I am let's see. Let me take a quick break. We're gonna try to figure this out on the other side. We'll talk to our guy 24 kg about all things wrestling, plus the Dylan Dannis situation out at the UFC. Lifetime ban for his altercation with what they call the Islamic Brotherhood of the UFC. We'll get into that as well. And is TKO going too far with these bans? I know we talked about it a little bit, but last week or 2 weeks ago, we had an altercation on the WWE side of this as well with a hip hop artist who was removed from their show. There's a lot more to that story that I think a lot of people don't know yet. We'll get into that on the other side as well. This is the early bird special right here on ESPN Bakersfield.
1-842-2000.
Welcome back. Early Bird Special right here on ESPN Bakersfield, 101.1 FM, 12:30 AM. Apologies, the streaming service apparently is not liking us today. They were down earlier, but we do have our friend 24KG on the phone. My friend, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. You
We're gonna figure it out. You gotta, it's one of those days. Obviously, I am here alone trying to troubleshoot stuff as we go. We will get it all done by and by. Let's talk about what happened last night on Raw. Obviously, I got to watch it with you at your apartment yesterday, and we both, I think, had the same kind of mindset leaving that show. But wow, I think they really went all out for John's last appearance at Madison Square.
I would definitely agree with you because a lot of people, I think, noticing the caliber of show that Monday Night Raw put on last night, they actually, I think, let God, that we just recently last match on Monday Night Raw. Really good stuff and everything else that goes along with it. Right, 3 on 3 last night with regular people, no surgical, we were giving it a go. I would have to say that it was something that makes you John Cena more stars built and indication.
I have to agree. I mean, you heard me say it in the first segment here. I think NXT is the best feeder system in wrestling. It's probably the only major, but he saw one of their best in Javon Evans yesterday. We talked about the match as we were watching it, but it was kind of a show out for the Young Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're taking on someone that is physically dominating as Gunther and going chop for chop with the man, there's a lot to be praised there.
You know, I don't think a lot of people really realize the factor on Javon Evans matched up with Gunther on, and just to point out, he came out to his original Raw music, the ring, the 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 change, of course, the CFO situation. John the Cowboys into all in the Western the case. But when it came down to main um, when it came
I have to agree. I think they did a fantastic job putting it together. Whether they had time to actually plan it out or not, I have no idea. But usually, when these kids are, jumping from show to show, as Javon does, they don't have a lot of time to really sit down and talk with a lot of their coworkers, obviously, and figure out how to do these matches. So, if this was a short timed match, I think both of them did a fantastic job. Unfortunate, Javon did not move on, but you heard me say it yesterday, my friend. The last person I want to see win this entire tournament is Gunther. I mean, that we've heard rumors for the past couple of weeks that Gunther is gonna be that guy to be the last match for John Cena. Do we really wanna see Gunther retire both Goldberg and John Cena in a year? I mean, that's gonna be rough.
wait a minute. Before you know, yep, go from I think ever heard of in WWE. You can't even attempt that to drop left. Brock Lesnar. I really
He could be. Now, Gunther against Brock would be fantastic, but at this point, I don't know if you're gonna get that anytime soon. I think we're really well, I mean, you heard me say it last week, my friend. I think they're doing a great job with Brock and what we are trying to get from him. I think the best way to really book Brock would be to have him just be the beast, be the guy who runs roughshod through everybody. You know what I mean? Whenever you need him to, much like an old school Undertaker. When you had Undertaker in the company, you never really saw Undertaker every single night, but the presence of him was definitely there. At any point in time, they could be called upon and say, "You have a match with the Undertaker," and that was essentially the beast coming out. And I think that's essentially what we're going to get with Brock Lesnar going forward is the fact that somehow, some way, we are going to see the beast coming in anytime he needs to just wreck someone and then leave. Because I think
But
that's
right,
right,
we see
right.
which we can get the chance to do this guy. I'm going to wait, maybe give it one more week. The
Old
info
school NYCFD too.
low talk, uh, we can kind of suspect coming from Jay Uso,
Right.
rumblings that we've been.
And let's touch on that real quick before we go to break because we are having audio issues as well on the stream side, and I'm trying to fix this as we go. But dude, I'm telling you, my friend, it was not a pleasant morning just when I woke up and realized that the streaming system decided that it was going to have a global outage. I apologize for people trying to listen on the stream. I realize KG is not very well heard right now. You can kind of get glimpses, but for some reason, you're not coming through clearly. I'm trying to fix this. I apologize. If you can't listen, if you can't hear it, listening on ESPNBakersfield.com, you'll get the full audio and whatnot. We'll get the stream up and running, I promise. But let's talk about that.
That was the
No, I don't know if it's you, my friend. I think it's actually just the stream itself. I think we're just having issues on that end. But you talked about it, Jey Uso. There's been a little bit of a rumor that obviously you can't, you can't ignore. We can't ignore the fact that we're seeing some signs of Jay maybe turning heel here and maybe potentially, I mean, somehow joining the Vision. Do you think that's a possibility? And I brought this up to you last night. There are a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize or don't notice. But one of those things was when Jey Uso was getting criticized for his lack of endurance or, potentially play and all that type of stuff. It really came down to his workouts and what he needed to do to really get in shape. And guess who he was working out with? But Braun Breaker. So,
yeah.
realistically speaking, could that potentially be the tell that we see Jey Uso joining forces with Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Paul Heyman at some point down the line?
I wouldn't say a yes. I booked a skill to be
And you know what? Obviously, we're just speculating. None of us are inside the writing room of all of this, and they are some of the best writers in all of entertainment. Let's be fair. Do we really want to see Jey Uso turn heel again? No. Do we need Jey Uso as essentially the baby version of the tribal chief? Because that's what you would have to put him as, right? I mean,
yeah.
you would have to have.
Well, yes, trademark term tribal.
Now, maybe we'll see a four-way match between the 3 brothers then. Maybe we'll get Jimmy, Jay, and Solo all fighting it out for that. Because I mean, Roman's retirement is probably around the or, cl s sooner than people would like it to be, let's be fair, right?
Yeah,
I mean, because
you,
yeah,
you
you can absolutely tell that, this is again a man who constantly has to deal with leukemia as he is a leukemia, patient, and, the constant back and forth of his workouts and stuff like that has to be strenuous on his body, plus he's got that movie star-like look, man. He really does. You would assume at some point he's gonna be moving into the movie aspect of everything and moving away from the wrestling. Do you think
yeah,
that's potentially gonna happen maybe next year as we see a lot of these
I,
guys?
yeah,
Yeah, I did see that.
I think that's $1 million right there on the table. You know, those movies are, wrestling doesn't to coincide with what but still performing at he has to go complete that that's the twins. Like this man wants to live.
I have to agree with you 100%. I think that there is a retirement looming, unfortunately. Not that any of us want to see it, let's be fair, but you cannot deny that I mean, the writing's on the wall for a lot of these wrestlers that we love to watch. Obviously, Roman being one of them, and so many others. Rey Mysterio, we've talked about. Sheamus, I think, is on that short list. And you're going to see a lot of these younger guys that we talked about, like Javon Evans, taking those spots and really stepping up into the mold and into the game. Let's take a break real quick, my friend, as we try to figure out this streaming situation right now on the audio part of it. And on the other side, we'll talk about a couple things. Can you hear me now? Okay, well let's go with that. Let's see if I can get you in here via video as well, and we'll go from there. But at this point, we'll talk about all things going on in TKO. Like I said, the Dylan Dannis situation from over the weekend. Plus, I know you want to talk about the PLE changes for the WWE, what we'll be seeing going forward as they move away from a lot of these Vince McMahon created PLEs in wrestling. Let's take a break real quick. On the other side, we'll get into all of that by and by. This is the early bird special right here on ESPN Bakersfield. Welcome back. ESPN Bakersfield, right here on 101.1 FM, 12:30 a.m. This is the early bird special, and we are talking about our guy 24 kg about all things wrestling. Hopefully, we got the streaming situation figured out. I apologize
Check,
today. I
check.
mean, it's
1,
been
2.
a rough day for us on the streaming side of everything, just solely because of them going down and all of that type of hoopla. But
Can you hear
real
me?
quick, my friend, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, we got you, my friend. All right.
All right.
At least on the radio side of it. Let's see what happens when it comes to the stream side. I'm a couple of minutes behind on that area. There you go. Okay, yeah, I got you on both ends, so we're good there. Thank goodness we have been able to figure this out. I mean, good lord, it's been a day, ladies and gentlemen. I
We
apologize.
live in the dawning of Aquarius and technology, as
We really do.
he would say. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to figure it out. We're going to make it do what it do, baby. You know, we got a recap for the people that missed it. You know, Raw was phenomenal. John Cena's last match happened. Rey Mysterio took part in it with I can't remember the third guy.
Sheamus, it was Sheamus.
Yeah, Seamus, you were here. We had a great time. My dogs had on Christmas sweaters. They was doing a little feed me dance. It was great. It was great.
It was fantastic. Let's start what you want to talk about, my friend. I know you mentioned this to me yesterday, and to be
Yes.
honest with you, I have my questions as well, but we now have report that the WWE wants to move away from some of these PLEs that we are used to, at least
Yes.
the name of them, because, well, there's still some sort of trademark connect to one Vince McMahon. Can you break this down for us?
All right, what we're looking at now, folks, when you hear rumblings of TKO moving away from the names of more notariable, meaning popular named that we know pay-per-views or PLEs, such as WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Hell in the Cell. The reason being that we're going to see more WrestlePaloozas and suches out of nowhere basically comes back to ownership, property, intellectual rights that literally when you use, they have to be paid. Like somebody still owns them at their core essence, no matter who's running the company. Thus, names like WrestleMania, which were created by Vince McMahon, or Money in the Bank, created by Chris Jericho, they do still have a property, I'd have to say, clause or ownership tied to that, to where TKO is looking at it as if we want to fully get away from Vince McMahon, we have to create our own PLEs. We have to do our own themes. We have to create new tradition. Thus, you're going to see properties like WrestleMania, so to speak, be sold or pretty much clip to the back
Right.
for net worth or for company ledger. We need room in the budget, so we're going to go ahead and sell WrestleMania this year to the Saudi Arabian Sports Authority. For 2027 we'll have WrestleMania in Riyadh or Royal Rumble Riyadh, things of that nature. You're going to see a lot more of, or should I say less of, when it comes to popular namesake PLEs. You're going to see a lot more of the WrestlePaloozas. Just basically comes down to they don't want to pay Vince McMahon another dollar. Not one shiny shilling will go to this man and his $1 billion bank account because they've already come out of the pocket enough. Now, we don't know what the Endeavor situation is, the ESPN contracts. We just know there's a lot of money coming in and there's a lot of money coming out. But legally, nobody's being paid to hush because you're doing things that you shouldn't do, because now this company is publicly traded. You have a board, you have people that will investigate these finances to the last red cent. Thus, we're seeing this change in PLE names.
Now, my main question is that first popped up in my head. When it comes to all the legal battles and stuff like that, obviously I'm not a lawyer. We'd have to get somebody in here to explain this to me, especially when it comes to copyright and stuff like that. I know
Yeah.
some things, but I don't know everything. But it does this not constitute of the possession situation? You know, the adage of, you know, if you own it for a certain amount of years without the other person being a part of it, technically you own it now. Does that not factor into this at all? Does the WWE not hold state that, you know, the Money in the Banks and the WrestleManias and stuff like that, technically, although yes, created by Vince McMahon and Chris Jericho, does that not make it theirs, since they've obviously owned the rights to it for so long, and neither Jericho or Vince McMahon have been in the company for a while?
Well, despite the fact that they haven't been in the company for a while, doesn't negate that just like the shirt that you're wearing, somebody came up with
Right.
that design. So somebody will continuously be paid off the back end of those profits, no matter what company is making that shirt. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You
I
know,
get you.
this is where WWE is looking at the hundreds of millions of dollars, not just millions, and the long term billions of an intellectual property that, yes, I am making the said shirt, thus PLE, but it was designed by this guy. So they're still going to get some of the net, they're still going to get
Fair.
some of the gross.
Yeah.
How do we eliminate that and totally separate ourselves from it? We come out with a new one. We
Do
drop
we
new
have
merch.
any ideas? Like, do they drop any ideas of the new names for some of these PLEs? Are we going to lose money in the bank and all that altogether as
I
well?
would say we're going to lose money in the bank. We'll see Hell in the Cell come back periodically. But overall, if we're going to get names like Wrestle Palooza, which is wet cat crap to me, okay? Like walk outside barefoot and step in some wet cat crap on your lawn. And that'd probably be better than Wrestle Palooza. Not to say the
So
PLE was crap, but the name
now,
could be better. It could have
and
been better.
the other thing that I'm kind of thinking in the back of my head here, what if AEW went and signed Vince McMahon or hired Vince McMahon to come in and be a part of the company? Would that mean that they now have stake to own things like WrestleMania? Would
I
they typically be able to sit there and say, well, if you guys don't want that trademark, we'll take it and
I
we'll
wouldn't
take
think
all
the
the name
trademark would be up
notoriety
for
that comes with
grabs.
it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the trademark or name is up for grabs nonetheless, but as a character, as an on-screen character, Vince McMahon could have nothing to do with AEW business-wise. It's just
Fair.
his presence alone that would command so much controversial attention that all eyes would be glued to that product and thus save that company. We could definitely see that. But also, a name has a lot when it comes to appeal sake in the business of professional wrestling. A good name can take you a long way or it can lead you down a real short road.
100%.
So
100%.
names like Wrestle Palooza, give or take, to each their own. Some people thought it was genius. Most people didn't know it was a previously used and owned intellectual
Right.
property. So they had to pay for that from another wrestling organization. So how original and how creative was that really?
I mean, that's fair. And that's the other question I was going to have because obviously we've seen that the ESPN people have not exactly been creative with the new names and most likely will just dip into the ones that ECW used to use that are not being used anymore. Like
Hey,
that's
they're owned by TKO now.
they are. They are absolutely owned by TKO. And to be honest, if you're not going to utilize the properties in which you already own, I don't see why we're going to continue down this road. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
let's shift over, though, my friend, because there is a story that I wanted to get your thoughts on in this entire situation. I mentioned it earlier, but UFC, partner with WWE now and TKO, had a very interesting situation happen over the weekend. They had their own pay-per-view. I believe it was live from Madison Square Garden, if I'm not mistaken. But people aren't even talking about the matches that happen inside the octagon. They're talking about the fight that happened outside the octagon, thanks to Mr. Dylan Dennis, who for some reason took it upon himself to really cause an altercation between himself and what they call the Islamic Brotherhood in the UFC, which for those of you who don't follow the UFC, that would be your Khabibs, your oh god, I can't remember his name, the guy who actually fought this weekend, but just really, really badass men that you do not want to mess with in any way, shape, or form. And for those of you who don't know who Dylan Dannis is, let me do a little bit of setting the table for you. Dylan Dannis
Real quick.
is a MMA fighter, never been a UFC fighter, has always wanted to be in the UFC. But Dana White, knowing that this man is a little bit of a
Firecracker.
yeah, let's put it. That's a
Hothead.
nice way to put it. Hothead
Demonic
little-
presence.
You're being nicer than I, my friend. But
I'm
yes,
just saying,
he's a
man, you gotta
troublemaker.
have some holy water dealing with him.
Yeah,
Anthony.
he's a troublemaker. Let's be honest. He's a troublemaker, has been his entire career as an MMA fighter. And this is why Dana White has never signed him, even though he's very, very good friends. And I believe sparring mates with Conor McGregor, one of the greatest and biggest UFC faces of all time. And this instance is exactly why. This is exactly why they will not sign Dillon Dannis. And now they've even slapped him with a lifetime ban after that massive brawl that him and his group caused with the Islamic Brotherhood. I got some audio here from Dana White. I hope you can hear it from your end, my friend. But if you can't, I'll explain it to you on the other side. But this is just Dana after the entire pay-per-view happened, him explaining the altercation and what he knew about it going forward. Let's hear from Dana real quick.
I blame myself for that, actually. They came back and told me right before I walked out for the main card that Dillon Dannis was here and he was moving around sitting in fighter seats and not sitting in his own seat that he had. He had a ticket. And they said, "You want us to throw him out of here?" And I said, "He has a ticket?" And he said, "Yeah." And, they told me, they said, Masvidal said he's going to f*** him up on site. And that's what Masvidal said. And he said, "Well, he's 6 or 7 rows away from Masvidal." I said, "Well, if the guy has a ticket, let him sit in his seat and let him do what he's doing and keep an eye on him." It never even crossed my mind, as stupid as this could be, that the entire Muslim Brotherhood was here tonight in the first 5 rows for Islam. And as soon as it broke out, I was over on the other side and I go, I know exactly what that is.
So Dana clearly knows
You will never see
that this entire situation was brought on by Dillon Dannis. And as he was saying at the end of that clip there, I apologize, I cut it off a little early. He's saying you will never see Dillon Dannis at another UFC event, period. He has a lifetime ban. He can't even show up to the fights ever again. And again, this is a guy who is literally moving around in other fighters' seats. I don't know about you, KG, but that tells me this guy was looking for a brawl. From the minute he stepped foot in that arena, he wanted one of those guys that wasn't fighting on this card to fight him. That's all that I'm seeing here. He wanted to get the attention of Dana White in all the wrong ways. What are your thoughts?
I would agree with you on that. And let's just start by, Dana White taking responsibility for saying, "Hey, that's my fault." Number
As he
one,
usually does.
that's pretty good of you. Two, for those that haven't seen the clip or could really hear his voice, he sounds a little sauced up. Okay, he's enjoying himself at the fight. He sounds a little sauced up. So we're gonna, hey, no problem. You're still in your right mind. You're still having a good time. You know what you're doing. To take responsibility of what he heard with the information of, and just say, well, you know what? This guy, he knows he had no intention of ever bringing him into the UFC. So for the fact that he's there, you could tell that he's been a problem for a while. You're on the UFC's radar, but not in a good way. The time that people go seeking attention in the wrong places could be spent doing better things. Thus, if you have a relationship with Conor McGregor, why not do the proper things? Go through the right channels to be on a platform like UFC the right way. If you can't control yourself, you become more of a liability than something that I would like to be invested in. And Dana White is looking at it from liability versus investment. It's going to cost me a lot more to handle you than for me to work with you. And unfortunately, we see a lot of talents go this way in all the realms of sports, but with an outlet like combat sports, MMA, where you can literally all the things that's wrong with you as a child that made it to your adulthood, and you going in here fractured. You can mentally and just really clear yourself out physically on one of the most brutal sports platforms in the world. You can't keep your stuff together to make it through an event, and you have to go seeking a viral moment. Well, your moment just cost you a lifetime ban, possibly future millions. And hey, there might be another league that'll pick you up where you could make those future millions, but it will not be your dream of fighting in UFC. And that's unfortunate.
I honestly don't know if there is a fighting company that'll take this guy on after this, to be honest with you.
Too big of a liability.
Exactly. You're way too big of a liability. And highlight a couple things you said there. I agree with you. Dana White is one of those guys that runs his organization with respect and honor, and he's one of the first people that'll step up and take any kind of criticism or any kind of blame for stuff like this that happens. I love, like you said, that he stepped up and said, "This is on me. I knew he was there. I knew this was probably going to happen, and obviously I didn't realize it would get to this extent, but I didn't expect him to fight the entire Islamic Brotherhood in the first 5
Another thing you would have to worry about with that, the people that were around that are just spectators that got hurt.
Yes, 100% as well,
This,
and that's,
this
I think, another
yeah,
reason why I respect Dana so much for coming out and saying that it's on him. But I think one of the biggest things that you highlighted, my friend, that I have to echo, I've said this about football players, I've said this about basketball players, when you overstate the amount, like if your problematic attitude becomes more problematic than the money that they are spending on you to be a part of their organization. If you are, too much of a hothead and for the couple $1,000,000 they pay you, you're going to get fired. That's kind of
yeah,
how jobs work. And for
liability
Dylan
versus
Dennis,
investment.
yeah, and it's like you said, for Dylan Dennis to come out and essentially do this in all the wrong ways, to sit there and say, this isn't on him would be irresponsible of us, to be
Definitely.
completely honest. You're moving around from seat to seat, especially fighter seats, probably inching
He knew what
yourself
he
closer to
he knew what he
Islam,
was
these
doing.
guys. Yeah,
You
he
know,
knew exactly
whether
what
he
he
was
was doing.
inebriated or whatnot, when you're irritating and instigating and aggravating, all these words that I just used leads to charges
Mhm.
and incarceration. So if that's the path he wants to go down, you're throwing away a great career and some really potent talent. And unfortunately, it happens. We
Yeah.
see this on the daily, man.
I that is unfortunate, but you're absolutely right. I mean, we talked about the Antonio Brown situation and how that is. I think just over amount of time, it's hard for these guys really to, especially if you are a hothead or if you are a troublemaker,
Jay Moran in the
eventually.
NBA, he had to get
Yeah.
that whole little pew pew situation under control and learn to keep his business off social
And
media.
is that even under control? We just haven't seen it this year. God only
That
knows
part,
he's not injured. Is he gonna go out with his homies to the club again and start, flashing some stuff on Instagram Live? Because that's what happened last time.
you know.
And here we are. We don't know what's gonna happen. But that's my point, is that when you become too much of a liability based on, outside of the number that you are being paid to be there, there's a problem.
Yeah.
There's always gonna be a problem. But let's take a break real quick, my friend. On the other side, we're going to talk about another problem that was handled in the TKO realm as a hip hop artist that I was unaware of, no idea who this dude was, but you are very aware of, my
Ooh.
friend. Got removed from a WWE show a couple weeks ago. We have not been able to talk about this, but this kind of goes hand in hand with the Dylan Dennis thing when it comes to people being kicked out of these events, and rightfully so. I think a lot of people were upset with the WWE for removing this guy, but you told me something yesterday that I was unaware of that makes a
That a
lot of sense
lot
to
of people
me.
are unaware of.
Yeah, that it is the reasoning for why they removed this guy from his show. So let's take a break real quick and we'll get into that on the other side before we get out of here. You are listening to the Early Bird Special right here on ESPN Bakersfield.
studio, obviously, but at the same time, I'm not 100% sure if they knew that this entire thing would grow to this extent. I think that they kind of had an idea that this could become a problem if he does continue to show up at their events, and obviously, that is what we got. It's one. It's a rough story that I'm trying to build for you guys before we get KG back in here.
Yep.
KG, can you hear me, my friend?
Yes, sir.
All right, fantastic. Got you back. Help me set this table real quick. What was the hip hop artist name again?
Okay,
And
you've
how
got
did this
one
entire
of the
thing begin?
you've got one of the biggest super fans in wrestling. That is part of a very more than niche, I'd have to say, super popular group of rap revered rappers. You have rappers, then you have rappers' favorite rappers, such as the group Griselda. Okay, within that lies a man called West Side Gun. Now, before wrestling was popular, the demographic, much you would think, didn't look like me or Chris, men of our age, of our profession, of our walks of life, different but still the same and aligned through wrestling and music, mainly hip hop, would find solace and camaraderie in wrestling. These things became cool in the early 2000s, thanks to rappers like Wale, who was a very big part of the appeal of wrestling being presented to a younger demographic. Thus, the appreciation factor. We can all say that we've heard wrestling references in music of all types: rock, rap, pop, somebody rapping like Jeff Hardy, doing something off the top rope, put you to sleep with a DDT when you creep, however that goes. West Side Gun is one of the more popular in this world of what we describe right here, who has used references over time, who has used imagery over time in his depictions of music and art from WWE's golden era and thus any era that is befitting for per example. Over time, WWE, no matter how much money this man has spent, no matter how much appreciation he has shown to the business, has sent him several cease and desist. These cease and desists pertain to the imagery, likeness, and reference of said product. About a few weeks ago, they were in his hometown, Buffalo, New York. We're 3 minutes into the show. He was spotted, minding his business, not doing anything disruptive. He spent over $50,000 in suites before, maybe, which I'll elaborate on later. This is something they had a problem with because certain people in his crew and social media were posting things that maybe the company didn't want to be affiliated with or have their product represented by certain people. Not saying that in a racial way. I make this clear. I say this in a fan way. This is a family product. Let's remember this still. As much as we see, this is still a family based product. When they asked him to leave, it was 3 minutes into the show without explanation, without anybody who would thus be considered a supervisor or representative of WWE. Later on, he was legally informed. Sorry, I can't hear you, Chris. I believe the audio got cut.